Everybody. It's good to be back. What I'm going to talk about this morning is really give you a few updates on the Sustainable Wine Growing Program. I'll start with just showing you what's been happening with across the membership and some of the data that we've been collecting. I'll give you a bit of an update on some of the platform enhancements that we've been working on, give you some updates on the trust mark, show you a couple of the new case studies, and finish off with a couple of, one frequently asked question, and then we'll hand over to Liz to get into the nuts and bolts of certification. So Sustainable Wine Growing Australia, it's the national program for Australia's grape growers and winemakers to demonstrate their sustainability credentials. So it is open to any vineyard, any winery, or any wine business in Australia to become a member. It's a completely voluntary program. What's required is that all members log into our online platform every year, and they provide us with a data set of standard business metrics, and they go through a self-assessment workbook. So the types of questions that are involved in the data and workbook cover these elements. So it's around production metrics and also resource use metrics. But importantly, it does cover the triple bottom line of sustainability. So we collect information about production and economics, and also the way you're operating in your community. And also importantly, we do collect Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions from all members, so vineyards and wineries. So all members go through that process, and then for the certified members, they go through a third-party audit and to become certified, and it's the certified members who can use the Sustainable Wine Growing Australia trust mark. So I think it's also really important to acknowledge Sustainable Wine Growing Australia. We manage it in a partnership with Australian Grape and Wine and also Wine Australia. And the roles that we play is that Australian Grape and Wine really takes the lead on policy development and advocacy with regards to sustainability. And Wine Australia takes the lead on marketing and market access issues. And the role that we play here at the AWRI is really about looking after the day-to-day management of the program. We have that day-to-day interaction with the members. We look after the technical elements of the program. We have oversight of certification, and we get involved in all the extension and adoption activities. So with the membership, I think it's really exciting to be able to give you this update today and let you know that at the end of the last financial year, we were up over 1,200 members across Australia. So those 1,200 members are sitting in 51 of our 65 regions. So there's a huge diversity of members within the program now. That represents about 45% of the vineyard area in Australia and about just over half of the national crush last year. Another important statistic is that just over half of the members now have gone through that third-party certification process and are certified members. And almost 30% of Australia's vineyard area is now under Sustainable Wine Growing Australia certification. Now, just to show you what that looks like in terms of growth with the program, you can see in this figure here that we have grown significantly since the financial year 2020 to now at the end of financial year 23, you can see that we're up over that 1,200 mark. The other really important thing you can see here is that growth and transition of members to become certified members. So we've seen growth in total members, but also the proportion who are certified. Now, just coming back to this slide I showed you before, we do collect a lot of data in the program, and it's really important to acknowledge that that member data is all kept confidential. We don't release anybody's individual data, but what we do is aggregate the data together, and we do present it in an aggregated format and anonymously. But all of that data gets provided back to members in benchmarking reports. So hopefully all of the members have gone through that process and really looked at their benchmarking reports and understand them. But then when we do aggregate them up, this data is really important for the industry as well. So most recently that we used the data set from Sustainable Wine Growing in an aggregated and anonymous form to provide the data that has informed the emissions roadmap that Wine Australia has been working on. And we've also pulled that data together to do a life cycle analysis of Australian wine. And I'll show you in a second just a snapshot of that piece of work. We've also got a research project looking at that data, and we're using machine learning and artificial intelligence to better make use of the data and help us to develop decision support tools for members. More recently, we've been working with the crew at the University of Adelaide to do some baselining work on soil carbon, and we've been looking at ways that we can incorporate that soil carbon data into sustainable wine growing as well. There was a webinar on that just a couple of weeks ago if you want to go back and have a look at that. We're also looking at opportunities to integrate other data streams into Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. And one of the ones that we're looking really closely at the moment is looking at ways that we might be able to incorporate spray diary data into the program. So this is the data I was referring to before. This comes out of the paper authored by Kieran Hurlem and myself and Eric Wilkes and Mark Christic that was published late last year. This is just some of the really important data. This represents vineyards over here on the left and wineries on the right. And this is the emissions data that's taken from that aggregated data set, just to show you what a typical emissions profile looks like from vineyards and wineries. This is really important because we did this work in 2022, but we originally did it back in 2016. And the real aim of this piece of work was to see what's the difference between those two time periods with regards to emissions from vineyards and wineries. And without wanting to steal all the limelight for this, I'd encourage you to go and read the paper, but I can tell you we have actually reduced our emissions, but that those profiles from vineyards and wineries have stayed relatively the same. It's great for us, we are collecting a lot of data, and we really appreciate all our members for providing us with that data. So one of the things we've really been focused on in the last few months is to try and reduce the time it takes for members to go through and actually report that data, and trying to make sure that people are making the best use of their data and trying to enhance the experience when they log into the database and put that data in. So I'll just show a couple of screenshots from some of the things that we've been working on. If you've recently logged in and renewing your membership, so if you're already a member, when you would have logged in this year to do your membership, you'd see a screen that looks a bit like this. Now, this is quite a different display from what you might be used to. The idea here was that we wanted to make it really obvious how to get started. So there's a big black button there that directs you to where to get started. But the other one is we wanted to remind you how long you've been in the program and what that represents in terms of your region. So for this member here, they're in the Padthaway region. They joined back in 2011, back when the program was Entwine, and they were the 13th vineyard member to join from the Padthaway region. This particular member is a certified member. And what we've done is just make it easy with some quick links so that they can go in and quickly view and edit their details, download their member certificate, have a look at their certification history, and also have a look at any trustmark applications that they might have in the system. What you'll also notice there is this block that says unlock your charts. Now, the reason they're locked is that this member hasn't gone in and put their data in yet. But in a sec, I'll show you what it looks like after you've put your data in and what those charts look like. So this here is a different member. This is a member from the Adelaide Hills. This member has gone in and put their data in, and you can see that says you've completed your 2023 membership. And you can see on those bars there, data entry and workbook, they've completely finished their membership requirements. Now, this member is a member, not a certified member, but we've made it easy for them to get more information about becoming a certified member. So if you're a member and you want to find out that information, just log in and it's right there on your dashboard. But for these members, the same kind of quick links to that other membership information is on your page as well. The different part about once you've finished putting your data into the system is as you scroll down the page, it's that same information for this member. They joined back in 2015 and they were the 56th vineyard member to join in the Adelaide Hills region. And you can also see here that they represent 68% of the very large vineyard members. So 68% of the area, that is, that's represented by the very large vineyard area category in the Adelaide Hills. Down the page a little bit further, you can see because they have entered their data, you can see it's represented here in the 22-23 data set. We've just pulled out a couple of the important parameters that people are probably most interested in looking at, just to look at their performance for the last couple of years. So you can see the total number of tractor passes, and we started collecting that data back in the 1920 reporting season. You can see their yield history and also their irrigation history. And that data has always been there. What we've done is just bring it up the front so that people can see it as soon as they log in. The other thing that we're finding is that when people look at these, it's really easy to identify when you made a mistake. So if this was me and I was looking back at my membership here, I might go, oh, did I make a mistake back here in 1920 and have I over-reported my irrigation? And what we have seen already is people coming back and saying, actually, I've made a mistake there. We need to update our data. Further down the same page, you can see your emissions summary and also your emissions by year. And again, this data has always been there. We've just brought it up the front and on that front dashboard for people to see. Now, if you're a member and you hadn't seen this yet, I'd encourage you to go and log in now and have a good look and have a look at how you look over the past few years. The other thing that we've done is when members who've already been in, and you'd have seen this, but for the data that doesn't typically change from year to year, we've actually pre-filled it for you. So just in this example here, where you're reporting the area of red grapes, you can see it's got a 0 there, but the prompt is, it says last year you entered 34. Just tick it here if you want to confirm that you've reviewed it and you'd like to use the same number again. So if you tick that, it will pre-fill it there with 34. So this prevents you having to go back and re-enter the same information that's pretty well staying static from year to year. We've made the same change in the workbook. So when you log in, you can see that your answers from last year are already pre-filled. So the boxes are ticked, but the prompt here, you can see with the arrow, is just to say, last year you selected up to here. Just tick it to confirm that you've reviewed it and you want to use the same responses. So you can tick that to just stop there. Or if you get down to the next one, you can read that one and tick that one as well. So it's up to you. But the thing is, you don't have to go through and read and tick through every one again. Now, what we find is a lot of people use the workbook as their internal audit, especially the certified members. And I guess the beauty of this is that it's already there for you and you're going through this process. Just to remind you that down the bottom there in a lot of these fields, you'll see that there's this section where you can upload files and there's also a comments box. These aren't mandatory, they're just voluntary, but what we're finding is that more members are using these to upload and store their certification documentation or the documents that they're using and working on when they're preparing for audit. And same with the comments box. The idea here is that if you just want to make yourself a note, when you log in next year, that note will still be there and you can use it when you're reviewing documents in preparation for audit. Now, moving on to the Trustmark, there's been a huge number of Trustmark applications come through that application process, and the update this morning was that there have been almost 700 applications come through. That means that there's a lot more of the Trustmarks appearing on wine bottles. There are a lot of members there who've got signs up, displaying and being, I guess, proudly displaying that they're certified members of the program. So this here is also an area that's taken off. We did get some feedback last year, though, that there were some opportunities to improve the Trustmark rules. So we've been working with quite a number of industry stakeholders to try and streamline the Trustmark rules as much as possible. So thanks very much for all of those people who did help out during that process. And just a reminder that the Trustmark is owned by the AWRI and also Australian Grape and Wine, and it's a registered trademark. It's registered here in Australia and it's registered in a number of our international markets. The Trustmark rules are available on the website. You can see the link down the bottom of the screen there, and this is just a snapshot from the top part of the Trustmark. But just to remind you that because it's owned by the AWI and Australian Grape and Wine, when you use the Trustmark, you're using it under license from us, and that application process is actually us issuing you a license to use the Trustmark. So the rules are really around how that license is to be used. So don't forget, when you do become a certified member and you're looking to use the Trustmark, please have a really good read through the Trustmark rules. So the changes that we made just in the last few months is that we've put in some definitions for what qualifying grapes and wine are. So I'll just show you, these are just excerpts from the full rules. So please go and read the full rules, but just to let you know that there's a definition there for qualifying grapes, and that is that they're grapes that were harvested from a certified vineyard that was certified at the time of harvest and had completed Sustainable Winegrowing Australia membership requirements and certification training by the 14th of September of the previous calendar year. And that qualifying wine means that it's a wine with at least 85% of which is made from qualifying grapes, which are fully processed at a certified winery, that was certified at the time the grapes were received, and that's been stored at a certified winery. And there's also another definition there for what process means in the context of qualifying wine, and that is any part of the wine production process that requires energy or water or creates waste or wastewater. And just a note there that bottling and packaging is not considered within processing. So at the moment, that's outside of the scope of certification. So it's just a really reminder, go back and if you're looking at using the trust mark, make sure you've fully understood what the rules require of you. So really it's around those key criteria for qualifying grapes and wine. And just a reminder of the dates around that. The membership for Sustainable Winegrowing Australia, the closing date is today. So if you're a member and you haven't yet done that, please remember to go in and finish off your membership. This is especially important for the certified members because it's a requirement of your certification that you do maintain your membership with Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. Your certification training, this is only relevant for the first year and the first time when you first become certified. You have to have done your certification training by the 14th of September, so that's just a couple of weeks away. There's a lot of people who did their certification training a year ago or longer. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to do it again. You only have to do the training once. And then just make sure that you have locked in your audits and you've successfully passed your audit before you start harvest. Now, you've got quite a lot of time before harvest, but don't underestimate. There could be a wait time to get an audit done. So if you're thinking about getting audited before next vintage so that you can use the trust mark in vintage 24, I would highly recommend that you get on the phone today and book in that audit. And just a reminder here that to use the trust mark on wine, you have to have at least 85% of qualifying fruit, and the wine must be made at a certified winery. In the rules, you'll also notice that there's there's guidelines there for how to use the trust mark. Just be really sure that you've read through that as well, because it's important that you do follow the rules on this. There's been a couple of changes on this page. The one I'll point out, though, is the clear space rule around the trust mark. We did have some feedback, and we know that there's not much room on a wine label. So we had previously asked for a clear space of 3 mils around the outside of the trust mark. We've reduced that down to 2 mils, but just make sure you please do that and make sure it's on a high contrast background. And down the bottom of the rules, there's a whole lot of frequently asked questions. So if you've got any questions at all about the trust mark, there's a good chance that they're covered in those frequently asked questions. Have a read through. But if you're still stuck and you're not sure about it, please send us an email to the help desk. Now, for the certified members, if you're looking for how you go through that application process, it's on your certification page. So when you're logged into the member platform, just go to the certification page and it's down the bottom. So if you're a member who hasn't been certified, you won't see this. So don't go looking for it. It only appears after you're certified. But that's where you go. You can download all the information from there, including the trust mark files. Now, I just wanted to leave with one frequently asked question. We are getting a lot of questions about emissions from vineyards and wineries, and people asking, well, how does this work with Sustainable Winegrowing Australia? Now, when we first set this program up many, many years ago, it was set up to do exactly this. So for a vineyard, this is just some of the reporting of the data that you input into the member platform. When you're reporting your fuel and fertilizer use, the reason that we ask for those metrics is because that represents your Scope 1 emissions from a vineyard. And the reason we ask you to report your electricity use is that represents your Scope 2 emissions. So that's the data that you're inputting into the member platform that goes towards your greenhouse gas summary. And for a winery, similarly, your fuel, winemaking carbon dioxide, your refrigerants and your waste go towards your Scope 1 emissions. And your electricity represents your Scope 2 emissions. So it's the same thing. That data, what actually happens is that it all passes through the Australian Wine Carbon Calculator. So that calculator was developed back in 2009. So it was a collaboration between the AWRI, the Winemakers Federation of Australia, South Australian Wine Industry Association, and the Wine Grape Council of South Australia. And it was built to provide an estimate of those direct emissions, so Scope 1 and Scope 2. It's underpinned by the National Greenhouse Account Factors, so that's nationally accepted greenhouse gas emissions factors. And back in 2014, we actually integrated the calculator into the predecessor program Entwine, and when we launched Sustainable Winegrowing Australia, it came across into the existing program as well. So all the data that comes in, that members are inputting, goes through that calculator and gives an emissions summary. Now, there's a free version of this calculator as well. You can access that from the AWRI website. And just to let you know that we do have a review mechanism in place to make sure that that calculator is aligned with national standards. If you access the free one, which is an Excel format, feel free to use that one. Just know that you won't get any benchmarking reports with that. That's the difference between the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. Not only do you put your data in and get your greenhouse gas emissions summaries, but you can also go through the benchmarking exercises. For the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia members, after you put your data in and you go to the results section, you'll get a summary down the bottom of the page of all of your Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So that's where it's gone through the calculator and put the results there. So you can see that. And if you go further down your page, that's where you'll see the graphs with your emissions by year and your summary proportionally from those emissions sources. So those two graphs are the same ones that appear on your front dashboard. So that was a vineyard, and this one here is just an example of some winery emissions. So same kind of format. The last thing I just wanted to mention was that we have been doing quite a lot of work on case studies from our members, and this is across a number of different states. Those new case studies, most of them are now online, and there's still a couple to go. So keep checking back regularly and have a good read through some of those case studies. If you've got any other questions, I can answer some at the end of this session, but also if we don't cover them here, please go to the website because there's lots of frequently asked questions listed there as well. And lastly, I just want to say thanks to my team here at the AWRI, especially Liz, who is my right-hand team member. But we've also got Danielle and Bryce in the team who are helping on help desk and helping us in the background with our database and helping out with members. So thanks to the team. And if you've got any questions later on, don't forget you can contact the help desk at any time and ask those questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks for that, Marty. Now, I'd like to introduce Liz Pitcher, but before I do, I'd just like to say that we're going to do some polls throughout today's webinar. So you'll see some questions pop up on the screen. So if you could please fill them out as they pop up, that would be fantastic. It is a data-generated system, so we can collect the data and analyse it at a later date. Okay, so Liz Pitcher is now going to talk about the audit process, and my understanding she's going to provide some tips and tricks to get you through it. So Liz has a qualification in both agricultural science and applied science in viticulture. Liz has 20 years of wine industry experience, and her work experience includes various roles in small, medium and corporate wine industry businesses, incorporating grape growing, winemaking and research. Liz worked for 7 years across South Australia's Limestone Coast, Langhorne Creek, McLaren Vale and Adelaide Hills wine regions as a grower liaison officer for Treasury Wine Estates. And most recently, she worked as a technical and organic manager at Chalk Hill Viticulture in McLaren Vale before moving to the Adelaide. In that role, Liz gained extensive experience implementing sustainability and organic certification systems, including managing Sustainable Winegrowing Australia on behalf of 17 vineyards, 5 of which she also successfully led through the certification process. So I will hand over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Matt. I feel quite tired now after hearing all of that. Okay. So, tips and tricks. So by far and away, the AWRI has done a huge amount of certification training, helping people prepare and get through for prepare for an audit to the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia program. So just sharing with you a few things that I've picked up that people can benefit from, and hopefully break those barriers that where do we go, what do we know, what to do. So I'm going to talk through how to get certified, how it works, what to do once you've done certification training, suggestions of how to approach documentation, how to use the best practice workbook as part of your documentation for audit, a bit about sustainability action plans, what to do after the audit and certification, and key dates. So fair bit, I'll see how we go. So first thing, how do I get certified is a pretty frequent question in our help desk emails. So first of all, you become a member of Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. So join the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia program, you register as a member, fill in your data in your workbook, and pay your annual membership fee. That's how you become a member of Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. Before you can be audited to be certified sustainable, you need to attend a certification training workshop. The next thing is you prepare for and book an audit. Get that locked in, because there is a high demand for audits for people to be certified. Then you prepare, go through your audit process, and let us know that you've passed your audit and that you want to be changed to being a certified member of Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. So how does certification actually work? You've got vineyards are audited against the Vineyard Sustainability Standard, so the Australian Wine Industry Standard of Sustainable Practice. Wineries and wine businesses are audited against the Winery Standard. Now, wine business is a business that doesn't have a physical vineyard and doesn't have a physical winery, but buys and sells fruit and wine. So that's how you become, that's what wine business memberships are. Now, the audit is against each of those standards. You need to be able to show that you're meeting each of the points, evidence for how you're meeting each of the aspects of the standard. There are 7 certification bodies that have accreditation to audit you so that you can become certified sustainable. So the 2 largest organic certifying bodies, which are NASA Certified Organic and ACO, and then there's 5 other certification bodies that audit. And we understand at the moment there's 31 auditors that are working across those 7 certification bodies, and they work across all states of Australia. So I've done my certification training. What are the next steps? Okay, first thing to do is finalise your membership to the program. So make sure you filled in your data, your production data, your best practice workbook, pay the annual membership fee, the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia annual membership fee. Once that payment is done, you're a member. So you have to be a member to Sustainable Winegrowing Australia. Once you've done that, contact a certification body. Just get your audit locked in, just so that you're in the system. To do that, ask other certified members from your local region which certification body they used, if they were happy with theirs. Have a chat to your industry development officer in the region, see if there's any discounted rates or able to have some audits coordinated for an audit run. We really recommend you get quotes from at least 2 different certification bodies. They all have a different fee structure and way of going about things. So it's recommended to contact at least 2 certification bodies. Once you have, commit, sign a contract with a certification body, then you can actually go ahead, get yourself locked in with a certification body for audit. All right, that's the second thing. The third thing is to start preparing your documentation. So make sure you're a member to Sustainable Winegrowing Australia, work out which certification body you want to use and get into the system so that you've got an audit planned, and then get ready, do your documentation. Now, the internal audit can be a really, really good checklist. So paperwork and record keeping. This is a slide that we show you through the certification training. So the idea is to move from the left to the right to feel as though you're organised. Now, what that looks like in your business is going to be different. Every business will have different systems and processes because every business is different. So you can approach documentation in 2 main different ways. You can use it as an absolute opportunity to overhaul all your systems and processes and rejig, standardise lots of things. And if you're not happy or want to change a few things in your business, or if you didn't have any systems set up, that's okay. Other people choose to, it's more likely to be people that are time poor, choose to use existing systems and processes as much as possible without creating new. So where they're already keeping some records or tracking things in one way, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if those systems are still working for the business, that's okay to use. At no point, you do not have to use any of the templates and forms that are provided in your training if you've got something else that meets the requirement of the standard, because it's got to be sustainable for you based on how much time you have to prepare for it all and how it fits into you. Certification fits your business. You don't fit it. So it really needs to work in and be sensible for you. So tips for documentation. If a standard says you have a record is kept, so as you're going through the internal audit, where it says a record is kept, you will need to have a record. So the expectation there is that an auditor will be expecting to see a record. When you're doing your annual review or annual test of management plans, that's checking to see if something still applies or needs adjusting. So it doesn't need to be reinvented or completely overhauled. It's a chance for you to look at, okay, I've got a biodiversity management program. Does that still fit? Oh, a couple of changes. Okay, that's all that needs adjusting. Do it when you renew your Sustainable Winegrowing Australia membership in the online member portal. It's a really easy time. That's when you're focused on sustainable wine growing. Just look over all of your documentation, supporting documentation for certification at the same time, so that when your head's in that space. Now, one of my favourite little tips, if something sounds like it's onerous and hard work, you're doing it the wrong way. So another one is, if it sounds stupid, it is stupid. Nothing should be done just to tick a box for the sake of it. Everything needs to have a purpose. So in this case, just stop, make a note, a question mark, come back to it. Ask someone else who's certified, a certified member or your local industry development officer. You can always contact us at the AWRA Help Desk and we'll find a different way of working about it. There's always another solution. Yeah, there we go. There's always an easier solution. So just stop, and quite often it's thinking outside the square, things that may not even have occurred to you. There is another solution. None of this is meant to be onerous and hard work. You will need to do some work. You're not going to be able to just go to audit without having done any preparation, but it shouldn't be onerous. If your business is straightforward, very simple business structure and operation, your documentation should also be simple and straightforward. Don't make things complex that aren't. It just creates extra work and extra layers that are just not needed. So if you've got a straightforward business, your documentation is going to be very straightforward and should be simple. Okay. So as you set things up and you think, all right, I'm really going to give this a go, I think this would work, you're going to come across and realise some things that you thought would be a good idea just don't work. You can't maintain it. You thought it was a good idea, but no, it's not realistic and it doesn't work for your business. That's okay. That's absolutely part of the continual improvement process. Reset, rejig, and go again and approach it a different way that does make sense. That's actually part of the process. Now, internal audits, they're really, really useful early in your preparation to work out how you're going to tackle what you're going to tackle first. It's a really good idea to grab that internal audit. It's in M7, Management 7, part of the documentation. You can use it as a checklist. It literally is the standard in checklist form. Use that to work out what you've already got and to make a note of what that record is that you're covering off on the standard. Use it as a checklist to work out, okay, what do I need to prepare? What have I got missing? So the next thing to do is just before your initial audit and before any subsequent audits, use that internal audit, pull it out again, double check to make sure you've got everything ready and on hand so that if you've done that, you'll be organised. If you're organised, an audit's going to be quicker and far less painful for everybody. So just make sure, oh yeah, hang on, I better just make sure I've got that accessible, and just remind yourself what you're actually using in your business as part of your, to validate and as evidence for the standard. Now, it's also a good idea that in the years, audits are every 3 years, the middle years between audit, you can say that the online best practice workbook is your internal audit, because it is a review of your systems and processes. So the internal audit is really handy to use before an audit to work out gaps. You can use it in the interim, but you're already doing the online workbook anyway, so that covers you. Your management plans are yours. You decide what goes in them based on your assessment of your risks in your business. No one can dictate what goes into those plans. It needs to just be yours. All right, there's many, many different ways that represent things that represent documents and records. So a diary, as long as it's other people can read and understand it and interpret it. Photos can be records, electronic files, farm management, or even business accounting software, computer control like spray, irrigation control software, signs, posters. Many, many different types of things can be records. Now, we do show this throughout the certification training. Just keep in mind, you might be able to tap into lots of things that you hadn't considered. Now, in the online certification training resources that everyone who's done certification training through the AWRI has access to, at the bottom of within the documentation, M3, the documentation, there is a document register template. So this is something that I developed which you can use if you think it's going to be helpful. So what it is, there's a tab for vineyards and a tab for wineries. For each area of the standard, and I've said where it is in the standard, there is a listed suggested potential documents that you might need to comply as evidence to pass the standard. Now, there's a biosecurity management program. If you've got something else in your business that covers that aspect of the standard, then that's an opportunity for you to say, in our business, it's called, I don't know, biosecurity management plan. So this is a checklist, and it can be a reference for you, a one page. These are all the different aspects, the different documents in our business that cover the requirements of the standard. So you could use this in conjunction with the internal audit just as a checking. And some things you might just have a link to an online reference where some things might be stored. This is something that I set up when I was going through and being certified sustainable. I'm inviting it. It's there for you if you think it might be useful. If it adds complexity and doesn't make sense, that's fine. It's a tool there for you if that would work for you. All right, now the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia Workbook. There are 3 different ways. Please make a note of this. There are 3 different ways that can be used as part of your certification documentation. You can say that the workbook is your internal audit. You can say that the workbook is your SAP assessment, and you can say that it is your management review of compliance. Now, I'll just show you each of those. So the internal audit, this is what the form looks like. You can say that filling in the workbook as your part of your membership requirements to Sustainable Winegrowing Australia is your internal audit. We do suggest, though, before your initial audit, at least before your initial audit, you do go through the internal audit checklist, because that is the checklist that the auditor will have when they come onto your property. So you will better be able to follow and understand and anticipate what an auditor is going to follow. So the next thing is the SAP assessment. This is what the SAP assessment looks like. So you can fill out that form, that one page, or you can say, my workbook is my SAP assessment. The third thing is the management review of compliance and documentation. Again, there is a form that is available for you to use. You can say that your workbook that you fill in online is your management review, or you might have something else, other systems and processes in your business that covers it. They're all okay. It's got to fit and work for you in your business. Now, hopefully, everyone who's listening to the webinar that's done certification training has heard this before, at least once. All roads lead to the Sustainability Action Plan. So it is the central point of which you used to demonstrate and to document your formal commitment to continual improvement in sustainability in your business over time. Now, one of the key questions, how much? What do I need to include on my Sustainability Action Plan? So again, please make a note, take a photo, whatever. So if you've identified for vineyards, if you've identified a problem area and a degraded, eroded or contaminated area in your vineyard, you need to document a remediation activity for land, soil and nutrient. Now, for water, for both vineyards and wineries, water, biodiversity, waste, air, energy and fuel, you will be expected to have identified improvement strategies documented in your Sustainability Action Plan. Now, hopefully, well, during training, we do talk through each of those spaces, something that you might identify and put on your Sustainability Action Plan as an improvement strategy against each of those things. If you're struggling, get in touch with us, come to a follow-up session. I can guarantee there are things that you're doing. You just may not have thought about it in that way. But you ultimately, though, it is your Sustainability Action Plan. You decide how many things to include on it based on where your business aims at. And realistically, your improvement, the steps, how large the steps of improvement are, and how many they are depend on how much time you've got and how much money you've got. So usually actions and things you would include on your Sustainability Action Plan would either take time or money, sometimes both. So really, really, really exciting. I'll just quickly, briefly talk about this. If you've got multiple sites, owners, if you've got a vineyard or winery management company, or a family business that oversees multiple businesses owned by different family members, or a corporation, there is a new central organisation audit model that has recently been finalised. We've been working, Marty and I have been working closely with FreshCare for a fair while on this, and it's been launched and available so to use, which the idea is to be more time and money efficient for you, because you matter. Members of the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia program matter. So the first thing you need to do, if you think that model will apply to you, there's a fact sheet that got sent out to everyone who's done certification training. So if you got a newsletter from FreshCare recently, there has been some emails sent out. Have a look at the information in those emails. And then if you think it does apply to you, contact FreshCare, register with them, and then you can talk with your certification body from there. It is the idea is to save complexity. And if you've got one document that covers multiple different aspects of a standard, it can be looked at once at the beginning of an audit run, and then it just needs to be verified and site-specific things done at subsequent audits. All right, I'm certified. What happens afterwards? So you have your FreshCare certificate. This is what your audit certificate will look like. You need to make sure your business and site name matches the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia database. Your street address, the addresses listed on your street address need to be include all of the physical sites that you're wanting included in your certification. And you also see the dates. Your audit date and certification granted date are likely to be different. Your certification starts at the date of your audit once you've received your FreshCare certificate. So you need to go into the Sustainable Winegrowing Australia member portal, go into the certification tab, update your details from member to certified member, and then it opens up this whole section. Follow your nose and just copy off the certificate, and then upload a copy of the certificate as well into the website. We can then check, validate, and approve your certification to the program. Once you have, you then have application to use the trust mark, and you apply to do that online. So after certification, the trust mark rules and style guide, Marty talked about this already. They're available online, and you must apply to use the trust mark every time you used it. It's mutually owned by Australian Grape and Wine and the AWRI. So you're using it under license of us, and it is trademarked in our major trading countries partners. Membership, when's it all due? What do I have to do? All right, key dates you need to be aware of. The 31st of August, membership needs to be complete. You need to have filled in your data and your workbooks in the online member portal. We need to receive payment, your membership payment, no later than the 14th of September. The reason these dates are important is if you want your fruit, so this is for vineyards, if you want your fruit to qualify as being certified sustainable for vintage 24, these two dates need to be met. So trustmark use on 24, 14th of September, you need to have completed certification training. So membership requirements to Sustainable Wine Growing Australia need to be fulfilled. You need to have completed certification training. And before you pick fruit, you need to have a successful audit. So keep in mind those dates. You can always check if you need. Now, there's plenty of further assistance available, further support in audit preparation. We run follow-up sessions by Zoom, so an hour-long follow-up sessions. We'll shortly release another whole run of follow-up sessions every couple of weeks leading up to December. You can always contact your local wine region industry development officer. Many of the industry development officers are providing and supporting their grower groups and winery groups to get through. A number of regions have got local consultants that work in their region, or you can even just talk to other people that are certified, how they went about things. You can always call us or email us at help desk, and I can guarantee we'll find a solution or have a different way of thinking about things or working through things. So there's many options of further assistance that are available to you. So thank you very much.